Good evening. You are tuning in to AWANI Tonight, and I'm Sarayamia. Prime Minister's incoming administration sworn in, and Malaysia among 25 countries that doesn't recognize equal rights to citizenship. How can we make this fair? That's coming up. The swearing-in ceremony of new ministers and deputy ministers took place before the Yang di-Pertuan Agong at Istana Negara today. Prime Minister Datuk Seri Ismail Sabri Yaakob, however, was unable to attend the ceremony as he had to self-quarantine after being a close contact of a COVID-19 patient.
Raja Pemaisuri Agong Tunku Aziza Amina Maimunah Iskandaria was also in attendance at the ceremony, which began at 2:30 p.m. Chief Justice Tun Tengku Maimun Tuan Mat and Chief Secretary to the government also witnessed the ceremony. Besides Ismail Sabri, two ministers were unable to attend the swearing-in ceremony, namely Tan Sri Noh Omar, as he had been a close contact of a COVID-19 patient, and Datuk Muhammad Alamin, who was tested positive for COVID-19. The swearing-in ceremony followed Ismail Sabri's announcement last Friday of his administration lineup comprising 31 ministers and 38 deputy ministers. Ismail Sabri was sworn in as Malaysia's 9th Prime Minister on August 20th to replace Tan Sri Muhyiddin Yassin, who resigned on August 16th after losing the majority support in Parliament.
Parliamentary reforms and term limit for a Prime Minister are among key items the incoming de facto law minister, Datuk Seri Wan Junaidi Tuanku Jaafar, will focus on during his tenure. Introducing an anti-party hopping law and matters relating to the Malaysia Agreement 1963 will also be high up on his list of priorities.
Although he did not specify what reforms he would like to put in place, Wan Junaidi reportedly said he would have a discussion with Dewan Rakyat and Dewan Negara speakers as soon as possible regarding the transformation. He also believed that 10 years, which makes up 2 terms for a Prime Minister, is enough time to leave a legacy, as he pointed out similar restrictions placed in other countries. According to him, an act to stop party hopping is also very important, especially after the loss of Barisan Nasional in 2018. On matters pertaining to MA 63, he added that it was unfair to the people of Sabah and Sarawak if promises made to them in the 1963 agreement remained unfulfilled. Wan Junaidi was sworn in as Minister in the Prime Minister's Department in charge of Parliament and Law under Prime Minister Ismail Sabri Yaakob's administration, along with other members of the Cabinet today.
Should we reintroduce GST? As governments across the world have expended significant capital in the fight against COVID-19, Deloitte Malaysia's Senduran Ilalingam believes a broader review of Malaysia's tax system will be needed to address the fiscal imbalance caused by the pandemic. However, for him, the timing has to be right. Malaysia introduced a good and services tax of 6% on April 1st, 2015. However, after much opposition, it was set to 0 as the government reintroduced the sales tax and services tax in 2018. The Organisation for Economic Cooperation and Development recommended for the GST to be reintroduced in Malaysia as part of the country's medium-term fiscal strategy.
So globally, we're seeing a lot of governments have spent a lot of money to combat the pandemic, addressing health, safety and financial needs of the public and economy at large. Once we come out of the pandemic, there's a need for governments to improve their fiscal position, and Malaysia should not be seen as any different. In terms of, the approach for re-implementation, I think, Malaysia's needs to have a look at the entire, tax framework that we have here, and, whether it's fit for purpose, whether it's actually meeting our economic and business needs. So that goes just beyond the GST, but having a look at our overall tax system, to see how, whether it's taxing businesses fairly, whether we're collecting sufficient tax, and the GST should very much be part of that.
In countering the public's negative perception, Senturan believes that the implementation of GST and improving social protection of the people must go hand in hand.
Reintroducing GST should be done in conjunction with enhancing the social protection and having social transfers. Why is that important? Because taxes like GST and SST, they tax consumption, and the people who are sort of in the B40, they don't have as much savings, and they spend more of what they have on consumption, and so they will pay a greater share based on what they earn. And so the only way to address that really is, as the OECD has recommended, through making sure that there's adequate social protection, ensuring there's handouts, cash handouts, which we've seen the government do, but more of that to address that.
In 25 countries globally, including Malaysia, the law denies women the same right as men to pass citizenship to their children. Why is there unequal treatment in nationality laws in Malaysia? We speak to Family Frontier's Suri Camper on the implications when gender gets in the way of citizenship.
Article 14 of the Federal Constitution, which is about citizenship by operation of law, states that children born overseas to Malaysian fathers can access citizenship by operation of law, meaning automatically, meaning they just have to go to an embassy, register, voila, you have your Malaysian citizen. Law, however, doesn't say anything about mothers. And because of that, Malaysian mothers do not have the same right as men when it comes to conferring citizenship to their children. Instead, for Malaysian mothers, the process is not automatic. Malaysian mothers have to apply for citizenship, for their children's citizenship, under a procedure provided for under Article 15.2, which is citizenship by registration.
In December last year, Family Frontier and 6 Malaysian mothers filed a lawsuit to challenge provisions in the Constitution seeking automatic citizenship for their children born abroad. Mothers with children born overseas can apply for citizenship on their behalf before they turn 21 years old. But approvals granted at the discretion of the Ministry of Home Affairs are rare.
The chances of obtaining citizenship under Article 15.2 is approximately 3.45%. This means that 96.5% of the applications are either rejected or remain in limbo. And the consistent response that women receive is that their application is in progress, and the average wait time is anywhere between 5 to 9 years.
The existing citizenship provisions, she said, are a root cause of statelessness, denies children basic rights to education and healthcare, and keep families apart.
Now, it also affects Malaysian women's autonomy in deciding where to stay. Because the children will not receive Malaysian citizenship, they do not have the right to reside permanently in Malaysia. And this forces Malaysian mothers to migrate to a country that will receive their child, in effect, denying women the right to a domicile of their choice, their own country, and their ability to be with their own family.
Suri suggested for the law to be approached in an equitable manner rather than statutory, and to allow flexibility in the interpretation of cases.
The law explicitly mentions fathers, but it doesn't expressly state mothers are denied the right to confer citizenship. Instead, the government, in its application of that law, has assumed this, right? Because the law states father, that must mean mother does not get the right. Now, what we're asking for is for the courts to declare that because the federal constitution doesn't expressly state that women are to be denied that right, that the law should be interpreted instead in such a way that grants this right to women. Because it is not explicit in denying the right to women, therefore women should have that right.
We will take a quick break. Stay with us. Welcome back. Rockets were fired at Kabul airport today as U.S. troops race to complete their withdrawal from Afghanistan. U.S. President Joe Biden set a deadline tomorrow to withdraw all forces and evacuate allies, ending its longest military conflict since the September 11 attacks. Images show a destroyed car with a launcher system still visible in the back seat. A suspected U.S. drone strike had hit the car about 2 kilometers from the airport. However, it wasn't immediately clear who launched them. There were no reports of fatalities or airport damage, but attacks caused greater anxieties for locals already traumatized by years of war. On Sunday night, a U.S. drone strike killed a suicide car bomber who Pentagon officials said was preparing to strike Kabul airport. The blast may have also killed civilians. Flights at the airport have taken more than 120,000 people out of Kabul and will officially end tomorrow. A woman has died in New Zealand after suffering myocarditis, a rare side effect to the Pfizer-BioNTech COVID-19 vaccine. Myocarditis is a condition which involves the inflammation of the heart muscle. The Vaccine Monitoring Board said the woman likely developed the condition because of the vaccine, but had other medical issues that may have contributed to her condition. Director General of Health Ashley Bloomfield said myocarditis was a very rare side effect, and evidence showed that benefits far outweigh the risks.
I recognise it will be a worry for some people. I do want to reassure people that there's very clear evidence that the vaccine is a lot safer than being infected with COVID-19. This is a very rare side effect. It's one that we were alert to already, and we've now put out good information to health professionals to make sure they're alert for that.
So far, more than 2 million out of the total country population of some 5 million have been vaccinated. Schools in parts of Indonesia's capital, Jakarta, reopened today for the first time since the pandemic hit. The government gave green light as daily COVID-19 cases continue to decline, though many precautions were still in place. 610 schools out of a total of 5,341 have passed required tests by the Jakarta Education Agency to reopen. Restrictions prohibit chatting in class, mandatory face masks at all time, no recess, slashed class capacity of 50%, and all teachers must be vaccinated. The country reported 7,427 new infections yesterday, the lowest since June 9. Though Indonesia has seen one of the highest number of fatalities among children due to COVID-19. Data up until July showed over 350,000 children below 18 infected, while 777 died because of the virus, adding the group's total case fatality rate of about 1%. Australia's New South Wales, the epicenter of its COVID-19 outbreak, will hit a peak in October as cases accumulate. The state reported 4 additional fatalities today, taking the COVID-19 death toll in the country to exceed the 1,000 mark.
A record 1,375 new COVID-19 cases were reported in the country, with 1,290 cases from New South Wales, which continue to be a concern for health authorities. Australia has used a system of strict lockdowns and quarantine to keep infections at bay, and death rates lower than in most comparable nations. However, the Delta variant is now pressuring health services. There are 840 people in hospital for COVID-19 in New South Wales, with 137 in intensive care and 48 requiring ventilation. New South Wales Premier Gladys Berejiklian said vaccination rates were key to stop the spread of the virus. However, the rate of vaccination still remains low, as only 36% of the state population were fully vaccinated.
What have we learnt over the last 18 months, and how should it shape our pandemic management going forward? On Consider This, we speak to Professor Tan Sri Dr. Jamila Mahmud, previous advisor to former PM, about the lessons learned from Klang Valley's COVID-19 crisis response. That's coming up after AWANI Tonight. That is all we have for you on AWANI Tonight. Get the latest news updates on COVID-19 and COVID-19 vaccines from astroawani.com and Astro Awani app. I'm Sarayamia. We'll see you again.